Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we'll be continuing with our possible playstyle series for the Demons of Chaos in Warhammer 3. We've already covered Slaanesh and Nurgle, so it's about time we look towards the changer of ways, Tzeentch. If there is any reason to suspect that we may get a mixed demons and mortal roster for the Chaos Gods in Warhammer 3, it is actually because of Tzeentch. This is because Tzeentch's armies, specifically those of the demons, are primarily focused around spellcasters. And yes, a spellcasting army does sound quite powerful, and in theory it should be. However, always take in mind that Tzeentch's armies in lore and on the tabletop were always represented to be a little squishy. Your demons are not geared for melee combat, so the moment they start getting locked down, they will start to disappear, and fast. With all that being said, let's look at the possible playstyle for a Tzeentchian faction. Your baseline infantry would be that of horrors essentially. They are a basic spellcaster unit, which I assume whatever ends up being the baseline spell for the lore of Tzeentch, they will also have access to, possibly as a bound spell with 1 or 2 uses. Expect them to have a stat line very similar to that of Empire State troops. Nothing too special, but then again they are baseline infantry. Of course, this is the reason why they need to be supported by mortal units. Demons of Tzeentch in the lore and the tabletop were often seen more as a supporting role. That's not to say that they weren't strong, just better kept at a distance. However, mortals of Tzeentch were actually very different. Mortal followers of Tzeentch, whether on the tabletop or in lore, were often seen as incredibly tanky, often making use of either a lot of spells, incredible magical armors, or a very high ward save. It's often represented that the Warriors of Chaos are the shield holding down the enemy, as they will be able to take a lot more physical punishment, while the Demons of Chaos themselves work as the lance. It is because of that it's expected that all, if not most, of the followers of Tzeentch, the mortal ones of course, would be wielding sword and board, as obviously those are the ones more resistant to damage. Of course, the demons of Tzeentch themselves benefit from being a tad mobile. This is of course so they can stay away from melee damage, but to also get into a decent position to be able to support the Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch. Support normally comes from the Horrors of Tzeentch, as we've already discussed before, but also the Flamers of Tzeentch, which will bring some much needed firepower to the roster. Think of these as the equivalent to a Skaven Warpfire Thrower, which will of course provide some much needed heavy fire support. Now of course, these are generally short-ranged weapons, and will provide a bit of a problem if they get caught. It's because of that the Tzeentch armies are actually quite mobile, usually benefiting from some fast-moving mounts, either in the form of Discs of Tzeentch or Screamer Chariots of Tzeentch. These are flying mount options, not only used by lords and heroes, but also used by stuff like the Flamers, which means that they're incredibly mobile, as obviously flying mounts are quite fast. This will allow for your spellcasters to be incredibly mobile, as of course you will be able to stay in the air as much as possible. Your spellcasters can keep out of harm's way, but your flamers would be able to get into a more favourable shooting position without much trouble. Of course, now we have the final and perhaps the strongest part of Tzeentch's armies, magic. Magic will always be the mainstay weapon when it comes to Tzeentch, and of course this is very obvious when you look towards his unique lore of magic, the lore of Tzeentch. You might be surprised to find out that the majority of the spells in the lore of Tzeentch are not focused around augments or hexes, but rather direct damage or magic missile spells. On the tabletop, this could be considered to be a rather potent lore of magic when considering damage output. This of course makes sense after taking everything that we've learned so far into consideration. In fact, with everything that we've discussed, we can already discuss the possible playstyle. The Warriors of Chaos would be used to hold down your enemy forces, but they wouldn't act as a form of a tar pit. They would still act like Chaos Warriors, so would be able to do their own work and destroy enemies without an issue anyway, whereas your Demons of Chaos would be supporting them with magical attacks. Here is where you would have to start being mobile and being able to know how to micromanage. As of course, you don't want to have your demons getting stuck by any other enemies. It's likely that you will also have access to a stronger Wind of Magic pool, as of course this is the literal god of magic. Your supporting spellcasters being able to fly around will likely be your main source of damage output. Yes, this is usually the case anyway nowadays because Total War works like that, but it's expected that they'll have a very large emphasis for this. Stronger Winds of Magic, but possibly with some weaker warriors. Perhaps durable as ever, maybe even more so, but just a tad weaker to be able to balance things out. The question still stands, however, is if Tzeentch will have access to other laws of magic, as that might change up your playstyle. On the tabletop, they were known to use the Law of Tzeentch and the Law of Metal, though in lore, it was a bit more of a grey area, as Tzeentchian demons were often known to know a variety of different laws. If it's the case that Tzeentch's demons are physically weak as often represented, then I would say that gaining access to extra laws of magic might be quite beneficial to them. The Law of Metal is an obvious given as it was there on the tabletop, and to be honest, it might not be too bad to give them access to the other 7 main laws of magic, as they do fit quite well, and we obviously do know of Tzeentchian demons who can wield them. Again, the Chaos God of Magic should obviously be centered around heavy use of magic. Tzeentch was possibly the hardest one to cover in regards to the possible playstyle series, as I'll be very honest, it's not a faction you would often see on the tabletop barring Warriors of Tzeentch. But what do you guys think about this possible playstyle for Tzeentch's forces? Do you think they'll play any differently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and we'll start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.